Hey, it's movies worth talking about. I'm John Carlos, and I'm here with Eddie, here to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 4. We're just going through all of them. We've done 1, 2, and 3. We will do 5, 6, New Nightmare, Freddy versus Jason. Yeah. 4.
He walks with me when I sleep. It's like a heart attack on a one-way street. What does that mean? I can't sleep tonight because I gotta run, gotta hide, and I'm running from this nightmare. I turn around and there's no one there, and I'm running from this nightmare, running from this nightmare. See, I told you there was a song.
And for those of you listening, you thought you were just going to get a discussion, but you just got a fucking show.
Yeah, I love that song. Oh, dear God.
It's really good.
Yeah.
The Nightmare franchise has some pretty fucking good tracks, like in their series.
Yeah. Tuesday night.
It's funny, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, this is weird, just the 2 times I've said it, because it's a title that I usually have to sing. Because it's been, you may relate, it's been locked in my head for a long time. Forbidden Broadway. I'm 30 years old tomorrow. You know that song?
Yes.
When it's about Annie too.
Yeah.
A sequel. You promised a sequel like Nightmare on Elm Street 4. And anytime like it's time to watch it, I'm like, Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I can't. It's weird to say it. It gets sung in my head. Not 5, not 3, just 4.
Because that's the only one she sings. That's hilarious. Oh my God. I love that I know exactly what you're talking and singing about, and yet it never occurred to me.
Well, different things have different impacts on people, and that's just,
yeah, sure.
It just locked in my brain that way.
That's great. That was Forbidden Broadway Volume 2, if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
The CD. DRG Records. It's a good buy. So what do you think about this one, John Carlos?
Man, let me tell you, I was a very late comer to this one.
Yeah.
I have very much held the snobbery of 1 and that's it. And then eventually New Nightmare, yay. And then even when I was like 18, 19, I watched 3 because I heard 3 was a good one. But I'm like, fuck all those other ones. And then somewhere around like, because Freddy vs. Jason was what, 2002, 2003? Years still went by, and I really, I didn't give them much time. I didn't get to 2 and 4, 5, and 6 for a long time. Maybe like 15 years ago.
God.
Like between maybe between like 25 and 30. And I remember reading, again, internet reviews, the horror community, the cinephile community. I started to read a lot of appreciation for 4 about how like, no, even it's better than 5. Like it's actually very surprisingly well directed. It's a bigger production. It's actually quite good. So I eventually just watched the rest, and you know what? 4 is actually quite good. It's obviously not 1 and 3, but it's not a bad experience whatsoever. I actually am very fond of it. We'll get into all the things that I'm fond of, but yeah, I wish I'd gotten to it sooner. But there's a lot to enjoy about 4. So much to enjoy. I think.
Yeah. God, 15 years ago. No, just because I honestly, I don't think what year was this one released? 1988, 9?
8?
No, 87 was 3. So
and I think at that point they were like, boom, get the next one out next year. Boom,
right.
Next year.
So I think it must have been 88. I usually
88.
Okay, I usually write the year on my notes, but for some reason I
you.
didn't do that this time. Thank you.
Idiot.
Yeah, by the time that one was on, because I didn't see this in the theater, and by the time it was on home video, I was no longer carpooling with the young man's family. So I kind of fell off. I kind of started discovering other horror things, and I don't think I saw Dream Master until I did that marathon with my sister when I was like 14 and she was 11, I think. And I remember being all about it, especially because all the previous, oh, this is something I haven't shared yet. All the previous movies that I watched with my sister, we always designated one guy, like the cool guy, which really meant he's the guy we both had crushes on, but I was in the closet, so I couldn't say that. But she usually had a crush on him. In the first movie, it was Johnny Depp. We would always agree who the cool guy was. In the first movie, it was Johnny Depp. The second movie, it was Robert Russler. And then in the third movie, it was, I can't remember the actor's name, the one who played Joey, Rodney Eastman.
Yeah.
We loved Joey. And we were really happy to see Joey come back. I was really happy to see Joey come back. But I was really happy to see that I had crushes on pretty much all the guys in this movie. So that I liked it for that reason when I was 14.
And you get the variety pack when it comes to like types.
Yeah.
Because you have a total
I liked them all.
Beefcake, and then you've got like, I've got hair and big coats, and I run funny guy, you know. Look how sarcastic and whimsical I am to my alcoholic father, like, you know.
Yeah, right. And I'm Joey, and I talk, and my hair is more feathered now. So
he's Rick, actually like Rick, because he is both.
Yeah,
he provides levity, but also usually in the face of empathy and trying to help out or diffuse or deflate.
God, yes.
He's a good dude.
Well, because we knew we liked him. Yeah, we knew we liked him because from the moment he comes on screen, like he's fun, you know, and we were kids. We were just kind of like, oh, I like him. He'd be fun.
But you learn.
But then when you see what a good brother he is, like the fact that like even before anything really goes down, just the fact that he just kind of parks it on his sister's bed while she's, you know, just like doing her thing. And he's just like, kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? And she's like, what? And he's like, a mirror. You can't see yourself in it. And I'm like, oh my God, I totally buy. That's one thing I love about this movie. I totally buy that brother-sister hood. Originally, they were supposed to be twins, I think, and then that got thrown out because they don't look anything alike. But just that relationship, I totally, at that stage, I buy it. I love that he wants to teach her to like protect herself, so he does the sight and all that.
Yeah, and he keeps it kind of fun. Like, he cares, but he's silly. But he's silly because he cares.
Yeah,
and then things accessible, and
he has an opportunity to become what we call a Johnny Useless when he denies what's happening with Alice right after.
He doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't but like that first one, it's just like, she wasn't Tuesday. Kristen wasn't crazy, and neither are you. Okay, so just stop it. And it's like, oh man. But then after, I think it's after Toy Newkirk, Sheila.
Yes, it's after Sheila dies.
He gets pulled out on it. Yeah, it's after she dies, and he's just kind of like, and Dan's just like, whoa, what a coincidence, right? And he's just like, dude, I'm not so sure it is a coincidence. I mean, look around. We're dropping like flies. And then he just does that funny run to Alice, but she's in a silhouette, and he just kind of joins her in the silhouette, and he's just there for her, and he's just, and I'm just like, I also like that. That's when we knew. You're a good brother.
Right. And here's the thing. It's the kind of thing where if you walk, that's a few extra seconds of her being alone. So I know why he's running. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know.
I wrote down the turning point for me with Rick starts to believe after Sheila dies. And I like the fact that he gets there.
Yeah. I hate that, even though I'm not a fan of his kill scene, I hate that we have to watch Alice watch him in the dream with all the cheerleaders. I mean, the cheerleaders are odd enough, but then your sister's there watching you have a BM. And then she's quickly ushered out, and then you're in your nightmare watching Kristen in the mirror, and then she turns around and she's all scalded and shit. You had to watch her burn up in her own bed, and oh god, I mean, it's tough being Rick, and I think Andrus Jones does a really, really good job playing him.
He does.
So And a lot of that was improvised too, because I think there was a writer's strike for this one. I don't have a screenwriter name for this one, but I know that there was a writer's strike at some point, and so a lot of it ended up just kind of being made up on the fly. Like I know the scene where he teaches Allison to psych and everything was improvised. So there's that, which makes me like him even more.
There's a little bit, just a little bit of slight kind of sloppy disjointedness a bit from scene to scene. But when I found out that so much of this was just kind of like being written day by day and like, well, here's what we have for today and like, let's write a scene. I'm surprised this movie turned out as good as it did as far as its narrative flow.
Yeah.
Considering the circumstances with how it was filmed. Once again, let me just get this right off the bat. We have the staple of the formula. We have a shitty parent. Another one for the ages. This fucking, like, we're immediately introduced. I mean, he is so just shitty to his kids. Like, his attitude in the morning. Enough that, like, Rick's got to climb out the window to avoid him.
To avoid him. Yeah.
Only to turn around and, like, yuck it up with him. And I just, it breaks my heart when like Alice brings him dinner and his fucking response about the salad and all that shit. There's like 2 or 3 instances where like we never see like the hand get raised, but like there's enough verbal attitude there that I imagine if you extrapolate that or multiply that over days and days and weeks, so that when Kristen and Alice are talking together and she's asking like why do you know so much about dreams, and she's like, well, when they're all you have, you kind of become an expert. And I remember thinking like, oh man, that means like your waking life at home is so shitty. Well,
also sorry, go ahead.
No, just yay shitty dad. Like he's sucks.
The actor's name is Nicholas Meal, and the character is Dennis Johnson, Mr. Johnson,
who also we see like hitting the bottle and like
But I love, that's the thing that also just implies like, I mean, you know, abuse doesn't have to be physical, but I love the fact that Alice's rage, which Lisa Wilcox plays, I think, beautifully, when she's in her little daydream after he does that, what do I look like, a rabbit? And all that, when she turns around and just slams the plate down in her dream and her daydream and just tells him like, I am sick and tired of watching you drink your life away and blame it all on me. I'm just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. She seems really meek and quiet, you know, like just kind of like holding her books and, you know, imagining she's telling Dan, he is one major hunk. But I love that her rage is real and that there's, you know, that there's a spine there that so it's not hard to believe that like she develops, even if she is acquiring like the souls of her friends as she goes on, or essences of them, like their strength, I guess, so she can fight Freddie. She's got something on her own too, and I like that. I think this current screening wound up liking this version of Alice a lot more than I thought I did, because I never hated her, but I think I thought she was kind of derpy, like to use your word, just in terms of her just kind of like, you know, like, I mean, because I mean, she's there's something
her
like
daydreams she has less derp, and then she gets to access it.
Well, you know, like I said with Heather Langenkamp as Nancy in the first movie, like, you know, it's like, well, what do you spend most of your screen time doing? But this time around, I noticed that like even in her derpier moments, she wasn't like derpy in a way that was intolerable. It was just like, it's part of the storytelling, you know. And also I think it helps knowing that she's going to grow and she's going to like become this kind of like quasi action hero by the end of it, you know. But there's something about, from the onset, I mean, like I said, I love the opening credit song, the introduction of the new Kristen. I remember, like most people, I was super bummed about in my initial viewing. I made my peace with it now. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Actually,
still, I still wonder
but
what.
the more
Yeah.
I watch it, the older I get, the more I'm appreciative of what she brings to it, though.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it's
Yeah.
what an unenviable position.
Yeah. Poor Tuesday
And then
night. Yeah.
also just as a franchise fan, it always sucks when we have to accommodate a recasting.
Right.
We'd always prefer as much visual continuity as we can.
Yeah.
I was very resistant to it the first time I saw this movie, but once you've accepted it, then you can just sort of take in what she's doing with what she's given.
Yeah.
And I actually like what she's doing with what she's given.
And I would rather see her story continue with another actress than to have them say, well, we can't have Patricia play Kristen, so
Right.
Kristen's out. We'll just say, I mean, they could have killed Kristen off screen, which would have been terrible. They could have just had her move away, which would have been ridiculous.
Right.
Because
they have her killed over the shoulder
Kincaid
with a double, you know.
right.
Like,
because we still have Joey
like
and
Alice's
Kincaid.
nunchuck double.
Right. And I mean, and this is the thing about this movie. I feel like there are a handful of things that are like, you know, criticisms that I have. And a lot of them have to do with the logic, the blurred line of the logic really kind of like taking root for me. And that's saying something after Freddy's Revenge. But like, because I think the first one that I kind of like, we'll go over some criticisms and then we can go back to like praise, because I have a lot of praise for this too. But I think the first thing where I'm just kind of like, what? But it's stylized, so I'm like, okay, I don't really have this problem with it. But it's like when they're walking through the hallways really early on in the movie, I think it's the first time Joey and Kincaid confront Kristen and then just kind of like walk away, and Rick just puts his arm around her. He's like, those guys are kind of creepy. And they kind of like murmur, banter, and then they walk past the lockers and they've got that long claw marks going down with light shooting out of them.
And it sure looks cool.
Yeah. But what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Is it really there? Are they dreaming? Is it to this day I don't understand what it's supposed to mean, other than Freddy's here.
Yeah, he's here and he's watching, and it's not a dream, but yeah, no, but it looks cool.
Yeah, right. And then okay, the resurrection of Freddie. We get Jason the dog. I appreciate the name.
The name, yeah.
Kincaid's dog, Jason. So setting a precedent, but
Peace
running
fire.
out to and with the pissing fun. I remember even as a kid thinking that was stupid. Just kind of being like, wait, what? That's how he. Well,
Yep.
And that brings him back. Well, why the dog? Because it's okay. Is the dog dreaming? Is that the real dog, or is that like Kincaid's? Or is the dog dreaming that he's evil? Like, does the dog have dreams that he's the devil and he can bring like the Antichrist back? I don't know. I still don't understand. What does it mean?
But even just even before I tackle that, just he's not back yet, and yet we're still having a nightmare, like a Freddy nightmare, in which he comes back. So, like, I don't know. I need him to come back first before we're having a full Kincaid dream. So I don't know. Unless his powers are slowly growing, you know, which we sort of definitely explore that lore a bit in Freddy vs. Jason, like this certain degree of how much fear.
Like if they remember me or something.
Right.
I mean, actually,
and also, you know, the movie opens. The movie opens with Alice having Kristen's having the dream. So they even talk like, we defeated him. It's like, yeah, but if you're still dreaming about him, you're still afraid of him, then you're still providing him enough fear. The dog thing, for the longest time, I always thought this is so stupid that he's revived by a dog pissing fire. Now I've kind of more, maybe this is just my own headcanon, but like I've come to accept that, like, no matter what, it was like the earth, the bones, the revival. The dog pissing fire is just a flourish. Like, he could have made it a goat vomiting oatmeal. It was, or just anything. It could be anything doing anything. all that's going to happen is the earth is going to crack and I'm going to come back.
Right.
The dog doesn't literally bring him back with piss fire. It's just performance. It's theater. It's something that's happening to make my resurrection be visually interesting. So it doesn't bother. It used to really bother me just because I'm like, this is fucking silly. I've sort of let it go as just a whimsical little thing that's happening because no matter what, the earth is going to crack. Right. My bigger problem is actually the fact that you see like the skeleton reform.
Yeah.
First of all, the effect is fucking dope.
It is. I like it.
Oh my God. The glove, all of it coming back, this face and the skin growing back. But I'm like, it's dream world, right? Like his bones and everything are in the real world. So why are we dreaming about the bones reforming? Because
I don't know.
If anything, I'd want to. Well, he was vaporized at the end of 3 because like when he's reborn in 5, it's like born of the shit from 4, sort of the end of 4.
Sure. Yeah.
So that makes but I don't know. I always thought like dreaming of his body being reassembled and everything. I'm like, no, but it's a dream.
Maybe the holy water evaporated.
It is not the most satisfying return of Freddie.
No. And then Kincaid drops a car on him and thinks it's all over. And that's
your first time?
Right. I mean, again, I could argue he has a history of a bravado and kind of like celebrating too soon, like with the 3rd movie when he's just like, "Hey, Freddie, a pussy."
But you should have learned from 3.
Shit. Yeah, he should have. But the fact that he's like full on going, "Yay, I dropped the car on him." He's got, I'm like, and then he's, what does he do? He screams, Freddie back. And then the next clip, it's just Freddie sitting across from him, taking him by the collar and then just shoving his knives in him. And I'm just like, I mean, this didn't have to be this choppy or this. I mean, again, I know they probably had like the candle burning at both ends and they had deadlines and they shot what they could and everything.
It feels like the end shot as it pulls out and then it just cuts right back to where we left.
But not, because Freddie wasn't standing directly across from Kincaid, and now all of a sudden they're standing across from each other, and Kincaid is acting like they've been standing across each other from each other for a while. Maybe their improvisation just didn't go as well as Rennie Harlan was hoping. But
my nitpick is when we cut to reality.
Yeah,
he's in bed and there's no blood or anything. I'm like, no, we have pretty well established. Like if I hang you with the bed sheet in the dream, you get hung by a bed sheet in reality, and if I kill you in a waterbed, you're going to be dead in a waterbed. And the fact that Kincaid just sort of acts like he's dying and then there's just nothing. I'm like, we've seen people with balls on their chests, Tina and Joey with the writing. We got nothing with Kincaid. I'm like, this just feels lazy.
No, in all honesty, the only thing that bothers me about that death, I mean, like, what you're describing him on the bed, is the fact that Jason has to watch it.
That bummed me out.
Yeah, I don't like it. I swear I hear like a little puppy cry and I'm like, no. And then we got, I love Joey's nightmare sequence. Because again, true to form,
Titties.
Joey's Joey's a little perv and he always will be. And I just kind of shake my head at it and go, oh, Joey. But I think the only problem I have, and it's similar to, interestingly enough, I don't think I mentioned it in the pod for the first one, but it's similar to the Johnny Depp conundrum. Because, he got sucked up into a bed and then blood shot and then kind of went sideways for reasons that were, just an accident filming that looked cool.
Spewing of blood that no mother or coroner would be able to understand or accept.
Yeah. And in the deleted scene, like the body shoots up. So it's like, oh, so it's empty with all the blood and then just kind of boom. But Joey has the dream that she's in the waterbed and then wants to get in, and then Freddie, and the waterbed is now like a water tub and Freddie's drowning him in it, kind of like the tub in the first movie, kind of cool. Okay. How do we then, because the last thing we see is just like the empty pool bed, which is, it's like a pool now. The mattress is not intact. And there's like a pillow floating on the top of it and it's glowing red like blood. So I'm like,
Right.
okay, cool. So that's
'Cause
kind of
he
Johnny
leaps in and, like,
Depp-ish.
he gets him. Yeah.
But then the mother comes in to check on Joey, and she pulls the blanket back, and he is inside the mattress, which is intact, and his body is intact, and he's just drowned.
Yeah.
What?
I have two responses to that. One is that one was filmed separately from the other, and
Uh-huh.
we're just not going to really correct it. You know, they
Okay.
didn't really know which one was, whichever one they filmed, they didn't really know how they were going to sync up. We just know it was going to be a deathbed sequence. Or
Right.
two, they were fully aware of it and just don't really kind of like, I don't say don't give a shit, but like the idea is like, oh, well, we have a death scene where he gets killed in the bed. Wouldn't it be a neat reveal if he is now in the, like, Eddie, you're overthinking it. It's a bed. He's in the bed. He died in his bed. Like, who cares? There. I don't like it, but there is a very like hand wavy producer. Like, no, it looks cool, right? He's in the bed and he died in the bed. Get it? They don't need to connect anymore. It just needs to look kind of neat. Even though before it was like Tina gets stabbed in a bed, and look, she's stabbed in a bed. Like,
it seems like an awful lot of like extra work though. Like, couldn't the mother have just walked into the set with the pool of blood and no Joey and freaked the fuck out? That would have been interesting too.
Or couldn't Joey have been pulled under and drowned?
Right.
And that was it. He was pulled under.
If it was just like face down in that pool. Yeah. That would have been horrific, but but it happens the way it does, and it looks cool.
Here's the thing: it's a neat reveal.
Yeah,
this doesn't totally fit.
Yeah, and then there's also, of course, like that. Been so many people have complained about this, so I won't spend too much time on it. But just Rick's nightmare, which obviously was thrown together. They had a whole other idea. There was no time, and they're like, "All right, just have him fight an invisible man."
Yeah, and this claw will fly at him.
Yeah, and then he'll die. And I'm like, everything that sets it up, that's the only thing that really bothers me, is that everything that sets it up, like being in the elevator, being in the stall with Alice,
the elevator's great.
Yeah, all of
the
that.
vacuum form of like the buttons.
And seeing Kristen like charred body giggle at him and reach for him and shit, and all of it, and even him kind of being into it in that way where you're just like, no, Rick, no, it's not that kind of dream.
Only to just go to like a dojo.
To go to a ding, 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 ding with sheets billowing, and I mean it's over quickly. So again, it's not a deal breaker for me, but it's just unfortunate. And I know the only reason they shot it was because they had already shot his funeral, so they knew they needed a kill scene, because they thought about like, well, then we just won't kill him. We'll just keep him alive. And then they're like, but we already shot the funeral. Money was spent, so we need to use that scene. So like, all right, well, he fights Invisible Man.
At least it's a payoff to like all his stuff.
The only other real broad criticism I have is essentially for the climactic fight. I feel like everything that loads the cannon to get us there is great. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But once she's actually going toe to toe with Freddie, and they're doing that weird, I mean, you talked about the fight choreography in 3. In this one, he's full on kind of dancing and doing a wacky finger with her, and it's got this weird like not tchotchke, but like kitschy like kind of music playing. And I'm just like, what is happening? And then she kind of remembers something else that she never said about when evil looks at itself, it'll die. And once it happens, the effect is awesome. I'm back on board. But there's a long period of that climax where I'm just kind of like,
see, I have a very specific thing where we get there, I'm down with the fight. It's when that fight cools down and she's in the corner and she remembers the Dream Master song. And again, like, you remember something about evil looking in itself, but I don't know. I can even piece together the entire song. And then you do the thing, and I go, oh, I guess we're defeating him now. And I went, huh? Which is then redeemed
Yeah.
by an amazing death scene.
Yeah, with Linnea Quigley.
Doing the thing that she's somewhat known for doing in 80s horror movies.
Yes. There are full-on home videos of them shooting it where they're just going, Linnea, push your chest out.
Yep. And it's like,
yes.
Yeah.
And that poor sweet woman falls, who was up at the top, like, you know, working it because they didn't stabilize it, but whatever. But it looks amazing. It's so memorable. It's such a wonderful, actually, just as far as like visuals go, I feel like it's a really good progression from just like the faces that were lodged in his torso in 3, which I like anyway. But then to see that,
go with it.
Yeah, them look like so organic and almost like worms, just kind of like slithering alongside each other and everything. And they're painted up, you know, to look all dead and zombie-like and everything. Actually, it's so good.
That's actually one of the elements of this movie that I really like, is this idea that it's a very sad idea when you think about it, that when Freddie kills these teenagers, their souls can't pass on.
Yeah.
That they're trapped in him. And I'm like, that is tragic and gross, and makes that pizza it's so funny, but it's sad. It's like, these are the souls that don't get to pass. When he talks about my children, like that, forget being killed by like this dream demon, like you also don't get to just move on to whatever the next plane is. Which to me makes the ending so sweet, not sweet, but like sweetly satisfying, that in doing that, the souls are now his undoing.
Right. And not just the souls of the people we've lost in this movie, but there are children laughing. So you're like, oh my God, it's all the children he killed like in his life. And
now not only does he get defeated, but they get to finally move on. They're no longer trapped by him. It's very sloppy the way it's explained, but we do get to see them kind of pass through the good gate.
Yeah. It's rare that I hear children laughing in a horror movie and it doesn't creep me out, and it never has at the end of that movie.
And also in that same way too, where if the souls of his victims are trapped within him, she uses like the souls of her friends within her. I mean, I like quite a bit, and that's one of the stronger elements to it. I do wish the good gate, the bad gate, and them being the gatekeepers was explained more than just Robert Shea mentioning it in the classroom. I wish the lore of like her becoming the good gate. I mean, she becomes a dream master, which is the gatekeeper, but and then he just mentions like, I've been guarding my gate for a long time. But like, if you could clarify that, so we really have a grander sense of that. But it works.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because we already established.
Mostly it just fails with the song lyric and the reflection.
Well, I mean,
all this could just be cleaned up a bit.
Sure. I mean, and I think it's also attributed to the fact that Rennie Harlin, especially with this movie, was so visually based. It was, you know, and the script was almost non-existent, or, you know, like, or ever evolving. Let's put it that way. and in the process of being finished a little bit more every day. And so there is this incredible visual component to this one where, I mean, there are so many memorable images consistently throughout this. I mean, even the scenes that aren't nightmares or that don't have Freddie in them, are shot in such a way that they're memorable. Like, I remember them and the feel of the way that they're shot. Like, I mean, they did a great job just kind of like on the fly plotting out these shots and creating these moments. And so yeah, if they could have established it in that way, like give us some kind of like visual reference for gatekeeping, you know, like actually like give us a gate, give us a fucking gate, you know?
Right. And it's all like implied.
Yeah.
Like,
but give us a gate. I'd love to see Hell's Gate.
I thought the idea was that maybe like the gate was the entrance to the church.
Yeah, I guess.
And then the good gate is the window that the souls go through. But like, I don't want them to be in the same church. I just
That's you doing the writer's work.
I know. And there was a strike.
But good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for Good for you.
Also, things that are just a little wonky. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But in this movie, when they drive to the Thompson house, and they ask like, "What are we doing here?" And she goes, "It's his house." I think this is the first movie that acknowledges that Freddie may have lived there. Which to me, like, well, it's not his house back when he died, because the impression I get is the Thompsons still lived there and took his glove and put it in their little furnace. So maybe a previous homeowner or two before them. But
it's a blurred line, because in
is.
3, there's one point where the little girl tells Kristen in the basement, and it's clearly the basement set and not the boiler room set, even though it's got clutter all around and everything.
This is where he brings us.
This is where he takes us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
but
in the dream,
right?
Like,
because if it's
like in the nightmare, okay.
Yes, it has to be the nightmare, because if it's
because it can't be. Yeah, he can't have lived in that house.
No, at least not at the time when he was murdering these children and the families got revenge because the Thompsons lived there.
And now, they even say he brought them to the boiler room.
Yeah, if he was a previous homeowner, and if he's the previous homeowner and that's sort of fine. I can get behind that. But no, but 2 kind of establishes like, no, he worked here and he brought kids to this boiler room.
Yeah. So I think the house and the basement are where he brings any potential victims.
Yeah, that's
in the nightmare realm.
Now that 1 has happened and he's kind of got an affinity for
the
house, and especially with 2, like now this is where I operate from.
Yeah.
When it's just something as simple as I bring you here versus, turning a movie theater into a vortex and stuff. It just
right.
But yeah, it's his house was something I went, I'll tell you some nice things. I mean, because I have a lot of, I'm sticking to the positive, and I don't really have much negative for this.
Okay.
I mean, aside from the fact that it's just, the production was a bit slapdash. It definitely had a date, a very short window of time to shoot, and it turned out pretty good. But I like that not only are we back with high schoolers again, not saying you have to revert back, but after 3, it was nice for the series to come back to like teenagers, and we're out of the asylum. We're back in high school.
Sure.
Doing what kind of feels familiar. You can try a few new things, but also it's good to do with what works. But the teenagers are pretty well written, as far as like, I don't see this in movies very often, and I don't remember their names. There's the girl who's always working out.
That is Debbie.
Yeah. And then there's nerdy asthma girl.
Sheila.
The fact that Debbie's like, hey guys, I was up all night watching Dallas, who's got this homework assignment. And then like Sheila shows up, she's like, yeah. And they have banter. And then Sheila busts her. She's like, fucking was it Dynasty? Like Dynasty again? 1, you're establishing history, but 2, you're establishing kind of a routine, or like but also like, and I don't see this in movies a lot. And it's silly for me to say like Nightmare on Elm Street 4 writes teenagers so truthfully, but like I remember like going to school and like in the morning, the first thing would be someone like, who's got last night's math homework? Oh yeah, here you go. And then like 5 minutes before class, thanks. And I remember like doing rehearsals or whatever, and then just being like, hey, science, Mr. Gibson or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, here you go. Do you have, and just that, like, no one does that in movies, but that was such a thing.
Yeah.
Unless you were like a really good student. But it feels very natural to see it depicted in a movie, and to see it. And also the other thing that I like seeing depicted in this, it's not just like this exact gang of kids. I really get that sense that like Kristen hangs out with these people, but she also hangs out with Joey Kincaid, but they're not always partying together.
No.
That's very truth. Like I didn't just have the one group of friends in high school.
No.
And also they weren't always all the same type.
No.
And I love seeing like asthma nerd girl Sheila, not like just you're the gym rat and I'm the nerd, and here like we all, and then the jock guy's gonna come talk to us, and cliques aren't really a thing. Like there's archetypes, but they aren't separated by the map of who sits where at school, and we only hang out with
Right.
each other. That was how high school was for me.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a blend of quote unquote types, and I like seeing different types of people being friends with each other, and
Oh,
like I
and
think
the
Sheila
yeah,
and Gym Rat Girl, I love their friendship, their scenes together.
me too.
Like they have great chemistry.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is also there's something I love about their friendship because aside from like the you know, I guess the kind of codependent groundwork that they're laying for like I do the homework and you copy it, but there's also
That's the thing, though.
okay. This is where we get into like the actual performance of it and everything, like the thing that I tend to zero in on because one of the things that made me love Sheila pretty early on, I think it's when she visits them at the diner and Debbie and Alice are like working their shift together and they're both kind of not fighting over, but they're like competing to see who's going to be at Dan's table.
Right.
And he sits in Debbie's station and she's just doing whatever. And she comes back and she has a little exchange with Sheila. And what I love about Sheila, it's a moment, you can't direct this, but it's just like, they have the scripted exchange where it's just kind of like, you know, one day you're going to learn to do, you know, to do things my way or whatever. It's just like, and what is that? She's just like, mind over matter. And then she just kind of laughs and smiles. And then it goes back to Sheila and she just has this smile on her face. Her face just lights up. She's like, I'm going to go talk. I'll talk to you later. Okay. And it's just like, I know I'm being a big dork, but I like you. You like me. We get along and I'll see you later. Awesome. Bye. And I'm just like, the little moments like that where I'm just kind of like, oh. And the same thing in a completely other way. It's after Sheila gets taken away, and Deb is, I think, the first person we focus on in the crowd who's got her arms folded. She looks like she's been crying.
Oh yeah.
And she just says, "Oh, so sad." She just says she was going to be a doctor, and I'm like, "Fuck!" And she really misses her, you know. She again, like the deaths meaning something, and yeah.
Well, this movie, it was one of the ones that really hit me, and we get to see kids be sad about some death in 3, but you know, I've mentioned this in some other video somewhere about how I'm more aware of how death is depicted and grieved over in movies now that I've experienced some considerable death in my life.
Yeah.
And this movie really hit me where we have a funeral scene. I think it's Sheila's first and then Rick's. But I remember thinking like, well, one, when Sheila dies, we really get to see like Rick and Alice grieve, like actually perform grief. And I went, this movie's really taking the time to show teenagers grieving over death. I don't always recall that in all of these movies to this degree. And then also when we get to Rick's funeral, I thought there's a lot of funerals. I think there's more funerals shown in this movie than other movies in this series.
Or certainly like there's the period of grief after Kristen too, when Alice is watching the video.
Yes.
And she just misses her friend
on the couch.
Yeah. So there's always some kind of like echoing, some kind of reverberation. But this one
actually shows more funerals.
Yes.
Than any other. Also, that funeral, when Rick comes out of the coffin and goes, hey, I remember.
Hello, baby.
I remember being scared, like, oh God, what's Freddie gonna do? And then he doesn't do anything. It's just one of her daydreams. I think he even said, one of them says like, all right, like no more daydreams. Like, and then
she says it, yeah.
And then he's like, I gotta go. And I'm just like, oh, this is so much more sadder than any like Freddie thing. I mean, say what you. There's a reason why for over time, kind of, I noticed had kind of this pedigree of went from being kind of underrated to just kind of being accepted as one of the better ones. And it's certainly, part of it's got to be because the writing isn't bad or stupid. Like what we have on screen involves well depicted characters that are well acted with scenes that are tender and have feelings. And that daydream of Rick at the funeral really, really breaks my heart. But yeah, kudos to them for including along with, bigger, more elaborate death scenes and bigger budgets, but also more kids feeling and processing what's fucking happening to them.
Oh yeah, I live for it. It's great.
Yeah.
But there's also levity too, and I don't just mean Freddie. One of my favorite moments is I already brought her up in the last pod, but Brooke Bundy as Elaine Parker. I didn't know that Kristen's mom, Kristen's, like real mom from the other movie, they didn't recast her, thank God.
Nope.
I remember watching it for the first time. It's just like, honk, honk, honk. Kristen, get away from that house. On delay. On delay. On delay. On delay. And she just gets in the car and drives off. And I remember telling my sister, like, I hope that's all she does. And then, of course, when she came, she's in like the very next scene. And I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I get to see more of her. Like, I like this character. And she's still a bad mom. She's still dodging the truth. Yes. She's still writing checks and looking at Kristen like she's evil. She's drugging her daughter.
Kristen's friend has just died.
Yeah.
And mom is commenting about how she hasn't been sleeping but in the wake of Kristen clearly grieving, she's like, oh, you're just tired. Like that dismissive, like, your radar isn't even fucking dialed in, lady. Like, oh, you're just tired.
Yeah.
You just haven't been sleeping. Like, she's the worst.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think Alice's dad is probably the worst, but still.
I mean, none of the parents are great in this one, but I mean, I feel like he kind of moves in this movie a little bit toward the end, moves toward, like, slouches toward some kind of redemption when he actually shows he gives a shit about Alice leaving because Rick is dead. And Alice has to go fight the good fight. And he's like, you're not going out there. Because he's panicked because he doesn't want her to die.
Yeah.
and he's doing the best he can. But, he's been, on the sauce. But, back to Kristen, though, with her mom and everything. Like, one thing that I really, really appreciate from a technical aspect that jumped out at me this time. I think I always felt it before, but this was the first time I was like, wow, they're doing a really good job getting us, once Kristen realizes she's drugged, of getting us in her head.
Yes.
Because the camera sweeps all over that room. I don't know what track it's on, or if somebody's on wires, like carrying the camera, or what they did to create this disorienting continuous shot of her. And then there's bird's eye thing, and then it's spiraling and gets a close up into her face, which is like, someplace fun. Think someplace fun. Dream someplace fun, whatever she says.
Yeah.
And so I was a big fan of that. I was like, good for you, Rennie Harlan. I see you.
I don't often do this, but actually pause it, rewound it just to watch that again, because I felt I had the same response to the way she realizes and the way she performs it and the way the camera mimics her feelings. No, I mean, Rennie Harlan has gone on to direct so many big, impressive productions, and this first time out, like, there's a lot to like about the direction of this movie. It is one of the not flashier, but definitely bolder and more confident movies. No offense to some of the other ones, but it is extremely well directed.
Even Wes Craven was quoted as saying, like, it's by movie 4, it's a difficult thing to keep fresh, and Rennie did it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it totally feels fresh. That's the thing. I feel like the MTV direction they ended up going was absolutely right. And I think it also helped because this was the top seller out of all of them, right? Until Freddy versus Jason, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. Crowd pleaser.
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Also,
you get everything.
In that same sense, this movie has one of my favorite, not necessarily like a death scene, but just favorite dream sequences, as far as, because I'm fascinated by the depiction of dreams in cinema and transitions, especially within this franchise. And when, like, Alice goes to, like, she leaves and then I think she goes to the diner first and then walks down the street and sees the theater and then, like, drifts to the box office and the ticket person doesn't even look at her.
Yeah.
And then she gets pulled into the screen and she's in the diner with Freddie, who then like opens the doors of the windows, so we see. I just forgot. Debbie. The fact that we went from like going to sleep to the street to the theater into the diner to Debbie.
Yeah.
It's a nice sequence of events and transitions, and it's great. And
especially
I give all the props to Rennie Harlan.
Yes, yeah.
And also, what a cool staging of her in the theater, and like the popcorn and the soda lid, and
Jesus.
And the people. There's one woman who's like sitting kind of like this.
Yeah.
But the other ones are like really good.
Yeah.
There's just like the one who's like, it's like,
and then
almost sold me like 100%. But
and then like once she's sucked into the screen to look back and see all of her friends who have died applauding her. It's
really morbid. Solid. And again, it's not there's no big jump scares. It's just sort of creepy and well done.
Yeah.
It's one of the better things I've seen in the series. I also mentioned this, since you brought up all of her friends and stuff. I mentioned this, I think, when we talked about the third one, but I'll reiterate it to a certain degree here, which is that none of the kids here are like just dumb teens that I'm just waiting for to get killed. No. But specifically, they're all like worthy, like their characters worthy of my time. They're worth following. They're worth caring about. And I also like the idea that like this doesn't follow the quote unquote rules that Scream kind of laid out, and that Friday the 13th maybe definitely leans into. There is very rarely just like, there's a slut. Well, she's definitely going to die because she had sex, and that one didn't have sex, so she's going to live till the end. Like, here's the stoner. Like, it never falls into any of that shit.
Sheila, that's what gets me about Sheila's death scene, is that she's just this sweet, smart, studious girl who seems really, really nice and gets along with everybody. And I love when she just like it starts needing her inhaler. She just takes a puff, and the teacher just kind of, I think, just touches her shoulder.
Yeah.
Just like, you okay? And I'm just like, yeah, I want to take care of her too. And then in the dream, she's so lost and afraid. She doesn't know what the fuck is going on, and she doesn't consent to the kiss. And then he plants it on her anyway, sucks everything out of her body in a way that and it's not one of those things that I like wince and I can't watch, but I don't like looking at it.
No,
it's not pleasant.
It's sad. It's not scary so much, but it's not unsettling. It's unpleasant though. It's not
totally unpleasant, unseemly, I'd say, because there's a lot of sexual connotation, or I wouldn't even say sexual. I mean, Freddie's let's say sexual aggression coming from Freddie, what with the tongue movement and the two knives and everything.
To me, it's just the deflation of someone and the wrinkling and all of it. That to me is what's unpleasant, is just the sheer physical loss.
But the whole thing, she's so uncomfortable the whole time. I'm glad
you mentioned how confused she was, because to me that's also the new wrinkle, the new thing is that we now have someone who has been bequeathed the power to pull people into her dreams, but now when she goes to sleep, it's about her unwillingly pulling in someone who wasn't like, I'm not fucking asleep, I'm just doing my fucking homework. What the fuck? I'm taking this test. So it's tragic in a way that it's a different level of tragic that we didn't have before, because there's some unwilling victim who's perfectly awake, and now Alice has to like bear all that. So you're giving me something new to chew on in the fourth movie that still sort of feels an organic connection from the third.
Sure.
Props to part 4.
I shouldn't like that either. Like, I remember even thinking the first time I saw the movie, this should be something that I criticize, just the Alice, you'll need my power. And she can just bestow it upon her. But
the handoff is not very well handled. But
I don't care. That moment still exhilarates me. I'm just like, yeah, give her your power.
No, I'm fine with that scene existing. Just the way it's kind of staged and everything. Like, that's a nitpick of mine.
It's very stilted.
But the idea of this is what happens and this is what she gets. Yeah. It's all great.
I'm on board for it. And then I remember
the first time I saw it, I was like, huh? Like this, again,
doesn't bother me like the dog, but
it's also just weird because it's in that same scene. Like, well, he kills Kristen, and like he takes her soul energy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, this is the first time we've seen Freddie being depicted taking energy?
Right.
But then also, here's the bummer. They don't ever do it again. So it really
it passes from him. It like goes through him because it goes into him, but then passes out of him and into Alice.
Right. But still, if that special power wasn't happening, like it's being done as if like this is what always happens. Like the energy, Freddie takes it. I'm like, this has never been a thing before, and you're also the franchise has never showed again later. So it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb to me within the franchise. Not the worst thing in the world.
No, but Postcards from Hell was never a thing before either.
Oh, but I love the Postcard from Hell though. I saw one on Instagram and I'm like, oh, I need whoever manufactures that. I need one. I want to put it in my fucking...
Oh no!
Come on,
God!
It'd be a fun little thing to stick on a mirror. Yes.
Go, because that's another thing.
Anyone watching below, all 5 of you watching, comment below. Yes, postcard or no postcard. I say yes.
I say I'm going to use that to transition to the mirror motif, which we already touched on, but I love
we didn't get into it.
No, the fact that she's like it's odd because it's, how can I put this? I think it could read, if you want to like intentionally misunderstand what's going on, it could read that she's like putting away things from the past and like things of her friends and everything like that. The thing is, she's got them with her, so that doesn't bother me. The fact that she's peeling back things that she used, objects that she used to hide, and I like that the objects were, I don't know about selfless, but that they were celebratory. You know, they were like moments with me and my brother, me and my friends, me and, you know, these people. Here's us at the beach, here's us at the park, here's us in the whatever. I love that they're all these things that I don't think she's throwing them out, but I love that she's doing it all in an attempt to see herself more clearly. And after each death at a certain point, there's a little bit more of her face that we get to see. And I it's such a simple, almost, dare I say it, like underwritten motif, but it works so effectively also, again, because I love Lisa Wilcox's performance. But yeah, it works for the movie. I love everything about like getting her on her own kind of Nancy Part 1-esque journey to where she needs to be to fight the big bad at the end. I'm on board for, and it's a completely different journey, but that's fine. I don't want her to have the same journey as Nancy. I like that it's as I guess pronounced and openly symbolic, like unapologetically symbolic as it is. There's something really innocent and something very Alice about it to me.
I mentioned in the first movies podcast about how like that Nancy isn't some superhero or some unimaginable badass.
Right.
Whereas in this one, she kind of is.
Yeah.
But also, it's the 4th movie. It needs to be different. You can't just give me another Nancy. So, and also, it's called the Dream Master, and you're like living up to this role of the Dream Master. So, like, it works. I like it. No, to touch upon what you were saying about the mirror, the thing that, like, it could have gone so badly. I'll never forget when I saw the remake of House of Wax, and like I don't remember the specifics, but I remember like the bad guy was also like a twin or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, at the end of the movie, like that whole house is melting, and then there was like this like thing of the 2 of them, and like this thing cuts right in the middle of them. I'm like, oh, it's so symbolic because the twin. Like, I rolled my fucking eyes and I laughed.
Me too.
And there's a version of this where like she covers the mirror, and then every time her friend dies, she takes a little bit, and now she sees herself. Except it's actually written better than House of Wax wrote their bullshit. And also, Alice plays it so well, setting up who she is before we even get to Rick talking about the mirror.
Yeah.
And then every scene where she's taking them down, like I really get a lot out of her looking into the mirror when we reach the end of the movie. It's kind of not quite screenwriting 101, but it is a very obvious sort of symbolism. that's directed straight down the middle and kind of nailed it. To the degree with which they're playing with it, there's a version where you could have played with it more, played with it less, and handled it worse. I really like it. I'm all on board. By the time we get to the end of the movie, she's pulling all the pictures off.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I fucking love it. She's gearing up.
Yeah, she's got their articles.
A.
Yeah, fucking A. I do have to say, there's another contender for my favorite kill of the franchise here. I think it's still surpassed by Phillips from the third one, just because of the feels I get from it. But this one, Debbie.
I knew it.
I remember going through the first that I had gone through, the first Nightmare on Elm Street maze of many at Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. And one thing that intrigued me was the fact that, I'll get there. But one thing that intrigued me was the fact that the front of it was, I expected the front of it to be like a facade of the house or, you know, the boiler room or something. And it wasn't. The facade of the maze that you have to like go, you know, the entrance was the asylum. And you walk in and you just keep seeing empty rooms throughout, you know, like that wing, that tower of like Weston Hills, until finally it's not empty. And there were just all of these visages of Amanda Krueger holding a little baby Freddie. And she just kept creeping up on you. She'd just be like, you'd turn a corner and there she is. And one of my favorites is eventually you get out of his origin story and you start getting to the kills. And my favorite room was being inside that little roach motel. And there was a girl made up like Debbie with the full cockroach arms. And she's just running around pleading with you to help her. And I couldn't look at her enough to judge whether the performer bore a resemblance to her, because the hair was perfect, the outfit was perfect, the roach arms were perfect, and the setting. I was inside the roach motel. I got like a little, because you know I saw this when I was younger, so it's in my psyche. And there was even like a huge screen in the wall that was just Freddie's eye looking at you, and I was like, ah. But I think I spent that entire maze pointing out, because they had the whole franchise in there, and I would just go like part 3, part 4, part 6, you know, like whatever the kills happened to be. It was great. But yeah, it made me realize like how much I adore that kill, which is an odd thing to say because I don't want to see Debbie in pain, but it almost becomes something else at that point. It becomes Screaming Mad George is an artist.
Yes.
You know, unquestionably. So it's like seeing an art installation almost, you know.
Well, and also it's one of the few times where it becomes body horror. It feels like Cronenberg for a little bit.
Oh God.
It makes feels like, I can't say, it feels like a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
In a way that not just like I'm getting killed in a dream.
No, but it's weird. Surreal. It's surreal. And the fact that she's responding to like her broken elbows, just going, and then they go, blah, 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 and it's atrocious.
And the fact that fucking Rick is talking about Kafka at the beginning of the movie, and now we have the metamorphosis. It's a nice little callback. The movie's full of witty little morsels. We have a Kafka metamorphosis. We have a restaurant called the Crave Inn.
Yes.
Like,
we have, well, it's not literary, but we have, I just love when Rick is teaching Alice, what's she name? He calls her Alice-san.
Yeah.
With his little bandana.
Yeah.
But but the other thing about her kill that like I love is kind of like the misdirect, because I think Rachel Talalay already discussed this in like pretty much every interview she's done, but it worked on me. The misdirect that you see Debbie in the beginning, like eating, what are they, prunes or something, or dried apricots. And then she sees there's like a roach on one. She's like, ew, and she drops. She's like, oh, I hate roach. And she stomps on it and it looks disgusting. Don't eat when you watch that sequence. But because you just see, there's probably no roach left. It's probably all just like, you know, prune or apricot, but it looks all gooey. And you're just like, oh, I don't know if there's insect in there. Anyway, Even that bothers me. The thing is, like, they plant the seed that you think, like, oh God, so she's gonna end up like covered in roaches or something. No, she's gonna turn it. Like, I did not see that one coming the first
No, me
time I watched
neither.
that movie, and I was so fascinated slash I don't know about horrified, but I was again, it was unpleasant to watch
Yes.
because
My
it looked
my
very uncomfortable.
my thing was, I thought at first, the first time I saw it, like, oh,
Yeah,
look, there's a bug, so her death's gonna have to do with bugs. And then they spend so much
yeah,
time talking about her working out, and then we
yeah.
start the scene with her working out. Like, okay, so it's gonna be like a workout death scene. Got it. And then like, oh no, we are doing the bug. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay.
And even just like the face, always the scream,
Oh
like
yeah.
lifting up from the whatever it is, the sticky, substance that traps the insects. Oh, it's just so unpleasant. I can feel myself getting nauseous.
Each movie, like they were hampered by their like they always wanted to like there was ambitions, and then but
Yeah.
each movie still cost more than the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
And having said that, even though that they were still limited to a certain degree here, I mean, the money spent for some of these kills in this movie compared to like 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that
Oh yeah.
that bug death is, yeah, it's very well produced. And I mean,
Always effective. Always makes me. I have this face the whole time. I'm just like, oh. I mean, from the beginning, just with the elbows, I'm just like, that's uncomfortable. That looks really gross, and I love gross, but that's like, stop eating gross.
I believe it was Sota Toys, because they're not around anymore, but they
Ah,
before, so after McFarlane Toys made their Freddy figures, and
yeah.
before NECA started making all their Freddy figures, Sota had them for a bit in the early to mid 2000s.
Hmm.
And what I liked about them is everyone does like, well, here's Freddy Krueger, here's like the basics, But Soda did like Freddy from 3 in the tuxedo with the bow tie and Kristen's mom's head. And I'm like, this is fucking dope. I'm getting it. They
Wow.
made Debbie with the bug arms.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time going like, I wasn't really big on 4 yet. I don't think I'd seen it yet. I'm like, it's from 4. Who gives a shit? Now I'm like, fuck, I wish I had that. That figure's fucking fucked up and disgusting.
Yeah.
It's fucking rad.
Immediately evocative of a moment. Like
Yeah.
you can't forget it.
It's
Yeah.
torturous. It's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the best kills in the whole series.
And it's what I associate the franchise with. Like when I think, like, I mean, even though, like, like I love the first one and what it is, when I think the franchise, I think, kills like Phillips in the third movie and like Debbie's in this movie. And yeah, and even Sheila's with like the weird Terminator arm robotic thing coming out at her, and then the apple, the peeling of it. Oh, and the bird's eye shot with, sorry to go back to
With
Sheila's,
the
but just
painted
like,
floor.
yeah, it's all like psychedelic, and I'm just like, okay, there was like a lot of preparation that went into most of this. So that the ones that don't quite work for me, I'm glad that, like, I mean, I'm glad that Kristen ends up, it's weird to say, but I'm glad that Kristen ends up in the boiler room for her final kind of like execution, because that whole beach thing, I it's inventive, it's memorable. I don't
that
get
can't
scared.
Be where she dies.
No, especially if it's Chris. I mean, I would have been so pissed off if I had to watch Patricia Arquette do that. I would have been like, what are we doing?
Before I talk about the beach thing, I just want to, when you were mentioning the painted floor of Sheila's death,
yeah,
what kills me is that every student is still, but Sheila, and then also Alice is like freaking the fuck out, and it just
trapped in her desk,
watching Alice struggle.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, the beach scene, I mean, these are again, we talked about this last time, like there's certain beats that the franchise started to solidify with 3. And one of them, we like in this one, we have, like I mentioned, like Freddie, like the costume variant, like Spaceman, Ninja Turtle, Leonardo. We have Surgeon Freddie in this one, and Freddie as something. We have the little weird robot hand claw, and then we have the fin, the weird. I like that the fin transitions, though, that it looks organic with some spikes, but then later when we see it, it's a glove. So I love that they did the multiple passes with more than one thing. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun gag, but and it works for everything that it's supposed to do. But if that had been elaborated on, no, that would have been a stupid death scene. But for what it is, also I always find it unsettling anytime you're in daytime and it's supposed to be safe.
Yeah.
And she's willed herself to be in a happy place. And then that fucking little girl, I think it's the same little girl from 3.
Yeah.
They look the same. We
She's
also,
certainly the same little girl from the beginning.
yeah,
when
the
she
beginning,
introduced herself.
well, the beginning of 4, she's the same girl that's in 3.
Yeah.
And I like
Okay.
that we have that continuity with Kristen, also with the red tricycle.
Right.
The same red tricycle that melted in 3 falls down the stairs in 4.
Right.
But
I
that
like that.
little girl with her fucking laugh, she really works on me. If I had a dream and I'm like, oh shit, no. Don't trust her giggle. No, get the fuck out.
I'll have to spend the rest of my days perfecting that laugh anytime I want to. I won't do it now because I won't do it well. But
what else? I have. Oh, can I just mention a random note?
Please.
Totally random. I fucking love that when they go to Kristen's funeral, that she's buried immediately next to Donald Thompson and Nancy Thompson and Kincaid and Joey. They all get buried. It's almost as if the plotters knew they were in the same franchise or something. But like, they wouldn't.
No, practically on top of each other. Yeah.
Yes. Like, it makes no sense.
Like, it's a Freddy pit and they just throw everybody in and just like put.
It's the one time the movie treats me like I'm stupid. It's like, remember these characters? They're all from this franchise.
Yeah.
They all died.
Look at them all. They're all, the tombstones are all gathered together.
They have completely different families, completely different circumstances at completely different times, but we buried them all next to each other.
Yeah.
Makes no sense. But I love it because it's a silly movie thing.
I also love seeing Alice after that. No, it's after, is it Rick's funeral? I think it's after Rick's, where she's in black, which also makes her different than Nancy, because Nancy didn't have a black funereal dress when she was in high school. When they walking away and Alice is already speaking with more confidence, already carrying herself in a different way. She's got the shades on, which lends her something cool to her, even though she's at a funeral. And then I just love the exchange between Deb and Dan, because they're like the last other two standing. And it shouldn't work. It's so hokey, but I love it. I just love the fact that she's just like, she changes so much every day. And he's just like, no, it's after every death. Yeah. And it just like, that's like on par with like Freddie was born from fire, Jason from water. How can we use that? For me. But I don't know, there's something about it that I like seeing Dan realize stuff. Yeah, because there's not much to him in this movie. I feel like there is more to him later, but in this movie, he is largely kind of like representational for Alice of kind of like the goal. He's the golden trophy, and the fact that he's nice on top of it, and even seems to know her name. I like that.
Yeah, when he comes to the diner and buys a pack of gum, and he's on his way to the date with the other girl. But yeah, it's nice. Yeah, he's a nice little meathead. Oh yeah. Also, just the idea of her kind of taking in their traits.
Yeah.
Again, it's a fun idea. The like you said, that scene, that dialogue's a bit cheesy, but it's another little kind of wrinkle in the series that keeps it fresh too. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, on par with that is like when she takes a cigarette in the girls' bathroom. And like, I don't smoke.
It ultimately doesn't have a huge like, she's not going around like doing impressions of her friends. It doesn't build to a really big payoff so much as emotionally when she's getting ready to battle. It really helps solidify her fucking A.
Even if there's even if there's lines like we have matching luggage, the bags under your eyes. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm ultimately, even though like I listed off my criticisms, I'm ultimately charmed by this movie. I have a good time with it, and again, I own it. I will watch it. I will
Oh yeah.
watch it again and again and again and again, and
Oh yeah.
I get what I need from it.
Absolutely.
Ultimately,
Yeah. We'll get into it with some of the other ones, but I mean, spoiler alert: 5 and 6 are towards the bottom of the series for me. I
mm,
still get what I need out of both of them. There's
mm.
not one movie in this franchise that I don't get joy out of.
Outside of the remake.
I'm not including that in this. When I say in this series, I just whoop, like it's not
Okay.
that
Oh,
that is
only
that is the
yeah.
Voldemort of the we don't speak its name. Like what?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But no, there's only one more thing that it's a light criticism. And because again, it always kind of makes me go, it's the very end. After they're just like, she thinks she sees him in the fountain or
Oh, in the
whatever. And it's
fountain.
just like, if I tell you, it won't come true. And they walk off and it's nice.
It's
Then the credits start to roll and you start to hear of all the songs. You hear the song that was playing while Deb was working out right before she died. And it's all about put your hands on me.
Yeah.
Like that. Put them on, put them on, put them on
Yep.
me. Put them on, put them on, put them on me. And I'm just like, so was that just there because they ran out of
Yep.
songs? And I mean, I guess the tempo of the song works,
And
like
if you get
but
charged to use it twice, they were probably asking the cheapest to use twice.
but if you listen to the lyrics, it's like, oh, I guess it. You know what? I take away my criticism because if you
Because
listen to
she
the
wants
lyrics,
him to put her hands on him.
and that leads us directly into the opening
Yeah,
credits of the next
next
movie, which
movie.
will, yeah.
You know what? It's funny. I was thinking that when I was watching it this last time, I was like, this is how the next movie opens. I wonder if the producers, when they made 5, thought of that when they were doing like, we should open it. This would be a good
there were a few other ideas they had. So I mean, it might have opened with them having sex regardless. I don't know,
Sure.
but yeah, no, it always just kind of struck me funny. It still does because I mean, tonally, it's like, well, your friends are still dead. I mean, granted, you survived. You can be happy about that, but is it really a put them on, put them on, put them on me time right
Look,
now?
they survived a trauma. Now they've survived. Time for some stress relief.
It is nice knowing that Alice is going to get that D. I like that.
Yeah.
Good for her. Good for her. And good for him.
You've earned it.
Yeah. Thank God he never says that to her.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be Dan if he did. But I like seeing her fully realized by the end though. She see, this guy who she couldn't even muster up the courage to speak to. That spoke to that spoke to the closeted me. Yeah, I remember thinking like, wouldn't that be nice if the guy I had a crush on, was like not only knew my name, but like, because I mean, I remember being in high school and like when your crush knows your name, but you haven't really like talked, and then they just like, Eddie, I'm like,
No.
Yes, and maybe it's not that pronounced, but that's how it feels inside. You're just kind of like,
oh my God, I hope it wasn't that pronounced for your sake.
Yes. And I'm not going to say any names because I don't kiss and tell. I had a lot of crushes in high school. Jesus Christ. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right.
Have you anything else?
Yeah, I just want to mention one little thing that this movie does that well, not this movie, but this series does, and this feels like an okay time to talk about it. And that's I like when it doesn't happen often. I can only think of 2 off the top of my head. When an ongoing series within it has a trilogy or an unofficial trilogy, like Star Trek 1 through 6, but within 2 bleeds into 3 and 3 bleeds into 4, and there's a nice little trilogy there. There's not an overarching story, but you could watch all 3 of them and they connect.
Right.
And with 3, 4, and 5, we have
Mhm.
we have Kristen. She hands a baton to Alice, and then we have Kristen had her movie. We had the Kristen and Alice movie, and we have the Alice movie.
Mhm.
3, 4, 5, and they all the way Freddie dies and bleeds it. Like it's a nice unofficial trilogy.
I agree.
I like unofficial trilogies in a series. I wish there was more of them that I can point to.
I like that I could watch 3 heroines exchange a franchise, and I like watching all of them. Even if I, would, full disclosure, I would really love to have Patricia Arquette full time. I don't, it's fine. I like the character. I like that we get to continue the character and then get Alice, and I get to see more Alice. And I'm never like, oh, I mean, among these movies, I'm never like, oh, this heroine.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
no, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just like for the longest time, I used to discount, just not discount, but I didn't include 2. It didn't. There was too many of the rules that didn't fit. That like I'm like, no, you have 1, and then you have
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, and then 6 also doesn't. There's things about 6 that don't gel. That's why I'm like 1, 3, 4, 5, and then to a certain degree, I guess you could continue into 6. But I guess now that I've 1, 3, 4, 5, like you could almost argue that like Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is The Hobbit, and then 3, 4, 5 is the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
I guess you could.
3, 4, and 5 are much bigger than like the simple story of 1, and Nancy is like Bilbo. She's like the main character of The Hobbit, and then she is a supporting character, part of an ensemble of 3. We do get to see old man Bilbo at the beginning of Fellowship, and then he's fucking off in Rivendell and fucks off for the rest of the trilogy.
Well, then what's New Nightmare?
Except for the very, very end, because he does show up at the end of Return of the King, so the analogy's not perfect. But for the most part,
well, then New Nightmare is the end. New Nightmare is the end of Return of the King.
Aside from his little end scene, Nancy is Bilbo.
Yeah. Well, that's why New Nightmare is his end scene.
But the whole movie is his end scene?
The whole movie is
well, you know what?
Scene.
Return of the King did have a considerably lengthy ending. So
there you go. Consecutive endings, like multiple.
But I'm gonna go with 1 is The Hobbit and 3, 4, 5 is the trilogy, and I'm gonna try to dig and make more connections later. I probably won't find many. Because there's no great Sauron, like Freddie was there at the whatever.
Well, there's a trilogy to be had if you do 1, 3, 7.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's that
the Nancy trilogy.
There was a period where that's all I owned.
I know.
But you know what? It's nice to have the Nancy trilogy.
Yeah, it is.
Works. But I really like a 3, 4, 5 trilogy too. So
I got it totally.
Yeah. So we will be back next time to talk about part 5, a title that I don't sing. I just say it. Nightmare on Elm Street 5. There was no Forbidden Broadway song that used it, so
it isn't even billed as 5. Well, we can discuss that when we discuss it, but yeah,
it isn't even billed as 5. What the fuck are you talking about?
In the opening credits.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like, I'm thinking the poster and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, the VHS cover.
That's a discussion for another day.
Yes, it is.
So tune back in for that. Thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thanks.
Talking about these movies is really fun. I like it. So yeah, find us on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Woo.